Okay, so just a little bit about me in case I'm new to you. I'm Debbie Levitt. My company is called Delta CX. I've been doing CX and UX and strategy for decades. I've been mostly lately a researcher, also done a lot of design, but I don't have an art background. So when you think UX designer, you often think CX is a company specializing in CX and UX projects, training, consulting. Sometimes I'm brought into companies to help them hire UX people, improve their practice, work better with Agile, be more customer centric. So really, anything you think I can help you with, please do reach out. I'm always happy to talk about these things. You can absolutely add me on LinkedIn. Just make sure you write me a note with it because I generally don't add people. There's just too many. But if you tell me you were at the Agile München adventure, I will happily add you on LinkedIn. Clients call me Mary Poppins because I fly in, fix everything I can, sing a few songs, and fly away to where I'm needed next. Also note, I'm going to say CX and UX kind of interchangeably. I think that when they're done well, they can be the same thing. And I don't want to die on the hill of who's the customer, who's the user, who's the human, who's this. They're all part of our ecosystem. Our company is probably not going to grow or have the success that it wants if we aren't doing the right things for all of these people. So I'm going to call pretty much everybody a customer because in some ways they help us grow and succeed. And also I'm going to often say we or us as pronouns. And in that, I mean UX and CX workers and people, because that's the job that I work in. So if I say we like this or we do this, I probably mean CX and UX people. I'm also going to have a little camera icon come up on the bottom of my slides when my slides don't have any more animations. That just tells people nothing else is coming. The slide has no more animations, and sometimes people love to take a screenshot or something. So UX. Oh yeah, deltacx.com/links is how you can like join my online communities, find my LinkedIn, get some free coaching from me, stuff like that. So thank you for posting that, Maru. And what else? I've got a Patreon. We've got the YouTube channel. My new YouTube channel is called Customer Experience, Customer Centricity. It doesn't have ads. We have 89 videos there. We have I think we have 800 videos on the Delta CX channel. Anything you could be dreaming of, I probably have it on YouTube. And I'd especially love this audience to go to the new channel. I'll put the link in the chat because it's really meant for you as well. It's not just a channel for UX people doing UX things. It's really for all of us. And I've got lots of videos about things I'm not going to be able to cover in depth today. More about discovery and more about why I hate opportunity solutions tree and why I don't like traditional impact maps and I prefer my own version of impact maps. Where did we find the slides so we don't have to take screenshots? I did not tell you that. I will have to send the slides to Ugur later. I did not prepare them. So let me make a note to get that to you later. Slides. All right, I'm also going to be drinking a lot of water. Everyone stay hydrated. All right, let's jump in. So just in case we are not on the same page about this, let's talk about what UX is. So CX and UX work are completely about creating experiences that are valuable, desirable, credible, findable, usable, useful, and accessible. But these must be from the perspectives of our target audiences. If a product manager, engineering lead, or stakeholder believes something is desirable and can imagine some use cases, but our target audiences don't find it desirable, we're not creating value. If something we create is easy to learn and use, but our target audience doesn't trust us, we're not creating value. If our target audiences want our solution and it would be useful to them, but we haven't designed or tested it for people with accessibility needs or who use assistive technologies, we're not creating value. All of these elements must be present to create value from the perspectives of our target audience. This is why many UX practitioners are not happy just taking orders. The orders very often tell us to just make some screens, give our best guess at what will be useful for people, and hope for the best. But many of us who work in CX and UX want better for both the users and the company. But when we try to have these conversations, people often see us as difficult, or people we don't want to invite to the next meeting, or people we should circumvent or exclude. And this can be certainly disempowering for us, and it shows a lack of understanding of what UX work is and should be about. Be product-led, engineering-led, or a sales-led organization. What about being values-led, like led by our company values? I would say we should be value-led. How much value can we frequently create for potential and current customers? Now, some people say, isn't that product-led? Being product-led is supposed to be about attracting and retaining customers through high-value, as I like to call it, products, services, and experiences. Everything we offer that customer. But many product-led companies decide on features based on opinions, guesses, and assumptions, or things they want to push people to do. That might be product-led, but it wouldn't qualify as value-led. And we might say we're a sales-led organization, but ultimately we're selling PSE, which must be an excellent PSE market fit. And sales will struggle with turning trial customers into paid, turning leads into conversions, and retaining and growing existing customers when our PSE are low value and fail to meet target audiences standards. All roads lead back to quality and value as perceived and judged by customers. And there are many ways to know we are not delivering value. Some customers will take the time to tell us. They tell sales why they're choosing another company. They call customer support to complain. They might cancel, and customer support might learn why. They leave us low ratings, poor reviews, angry tweets, and low survey scores. Customers know we suck, but we ignore them. We slap each other on the back and declare we're good enough. We release broken garbage and say, we'll fix it later. Sometimes leaders don't believe the negative feedback from customers. They like to pretend our customers are liars, and they'd never say that to our faces. But that's a fake reason to not act on customer complaints. We are unnecessarily making potential and current customers dislike our company because we think we want to be faster or cheaper. We haven't figured out that while efficiency is important, our customers care more about their experiences and the quality and value we deliver rather than our velocity, which customers don't really have a sense of. And all of this costs us money. Oh, sorry, that is the wrong slide. Please hold. I should be over here. CX and UX work are also trying to save companies from risk, mistakes, and bad decisions. A great model for examining and calculating the real costs of our guesses, mistakes, and failures is the cost of poor quality from Lean Six Sigma. Start with what the company spent internally on the project and all of the time it took multiple people and maybe multiple teams. How about marketing costs and sales efforts? Did anybody write training on these features? What did it cost us to delay or fix things? You can start to imagine or calculate all of the time and money spent internally on the project. But we also have to add the external costs. These are the things that people external to our company will still see or know about. And you can probably work with people from customer support or to see complaints or tickets or issues they have about your features. Maybe we can find numbers on people who downgraded or canceled. Can we figure out the costs of Ps and especially failed MVPs? Environmental costs for physical objects are also important. What's the environmental cost when everybody needs a replacement part or a dongle? Companies are sweeping the costs of poor quality under the rug. Document parts of projects that create any of these wastes or costs. Add it to the risk register or risk documentation. Bring it up in retro because Agile is about constantly reflecting on how things went and actively making improvements. To nudge our company toward customer centricity, we'll need to do a little digging on past projects. Probably almost all of us know of at least one disaster project at our company, whether while we were there or before we got there. Time wasted, money wasted, morale was awful, customers were unhappy. What did that cost? Do we know or can we estimate it? We might have to mention that project here and there to remind people of why we need to have higher standards for what gets released to customers. And the ROI is on this screen. These are all of the costs that we will save by doing a better job the first time, maybe next time. And these are some of the problems that can make us less agile. Whether or not we invest time, money, or qualified professionals in our design, there will be a design. We should make sure it's a great match to customers' definitions of quality and value. Whether or not we invest time, money, or qualified professionals in QA, there will be QA. Bugs exist and they will be found, though probably by angry customers tired of dealing with your broken stuff that you thought was good enough. Whether or not we invest time, money, or qualified professionals in making our products fully accessible for every disability, diagnosis, or condition, there will be customers with accessibility needs trying to use your products. Design, QA, and accessibility can't be sprinkled on later or hoped for. They are components of the customer experience. You choose whether they will be great or a source of complaints, frustration, and attrition. Now, before my chapter, we have a question. Let's see, question for the end. How can we define value in product management? We can go over that at the end, or hopefully you'll feel like I'm covering it. Let's talk a little bit about user-centered design and human-centered design. Emojis up. Who has heard of user-centered design or human-centered? You don't have to raise your hand. You could just hit some of the emojis on the bottom of the screen. Yeah, we've heard of it. Now, emojis up. How many people could give a really great definition of it if I asked them right now? Oh, no, not so much. Great. So good thing we're here together to talk about human-centered design. So this is the main process that most people working in CX and UX and service design will use. UCD is user-centered design, and it's also called HCD, human-centered design. And it's got multiple phases, including research first, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, testing, visual design, and monitoring the user experience after that product is released. But each of these phases that I'm representing on the screen have multiple tasks that can be done. CX and UX professionals must approach this strategically, deciding which tasks are needed, how long will we take, in what order should we do these? What resources will we need? And order does matter because each phase affects and influences the phases that come later. Information architecture informs interaction design. And I've made this look linear, but in fact, it's fluid and often cyclical. For example, testing our interaction design concepts often leads to iteration. This means another round of information architecture and interaction design work. And we should test again before we can call this completed. So our work spirals its way down to the best design solution. You'll probably also hear about things that say learn, build, and test, and that's baked into our process. You can also see how models that start with build are missing a lot of early learning we should do if we care about building the right things for our target audiences. You might also hear discover, define, design, validate, and iterate. Double diamond is a derivative of user-centered design. Design thinking is a terrible and controversial micro derivative of user-centered design that has stripped away almost everything about what we do in user-centered design. But I won't have time to go too deep into that today. Just search YouTube for Delta CX design thinking, and you'll hear all about that. And you're already familiar with what we call interaction design. These are our wireframes and prototypes, and information architectures in there too. And so that represents, how does this lay out? How does it work? How do people interact with it? But you might not know about all of the other phases of our work that make interaction design good. If we care about quality, then we care about the quality of the work being done and the outcomes it can create. And it's also why when we ask a UX designer to just guess at the build phase and make some wireframes or prototypes, often without researching or testing, this guessing adventure that's likely to lead our project or company down the wrong path. I would also say it is the lean sin of underutilized talent, when we only budget enough time for UX to guess at screens, when there's so much risk mitigating science and technique in our process. Fun fact: human-centered design and customer centricity can be found in ISO 9000 and 9001 and have their own set of standards in ISO 9241. So the next time someone says UX is just grunt workers making pretty screens and UX was invented last week, please have a look at ISO 9241. Now, most Agile and Scrum infographics might show a process something like this, where we start with the product backlog. Now, that's, of course, what engineering's planning to build and in what order. But if you think about it, it's not really the start of the larger product process. I would say CX and UX architects will be architecting and designing what ends up in the backlog. And before that design work, CX and UX researchers should be researching with our target audiences to learn their contexts, check support tickets, observe people, learn their tasks, find the opportunities to create something great for them so that it informs CX and UX architecture and design. So that would mean your infographic really looks more like this. User-centered design takes place before vetted or finalized designs can be added to the backlog. We do not have a backlog fairy where, boom, all of a sudden, stuff's in the backlog. But UX and UI are often confused. And one way that I help people tell them apart is if you visit the websites of some well-known universities and check what types of classes you have to take for a UX or HCI or human factors degree versus a visual design or more artistic degree, it starts to become a little bit clearer. UX practitioners are more concerned about functions, processes, organization, layouts, and usability. They study psychology and human behavior and how those relate to services, digital products, and human interactions. A visual designer or UI designer is normally focused more on the aesthetics of these elements, color choices, typography, spacing, branding, etc. This is why when people say UI UX, those of us who've been working in this industry a very long time, hold on, let me get my dinosaur graphic. Those of us who've been working in this industry a very long time tend to say, well, what do you mean? Because one is about psychology, behavior, science, and architecture, and one is about aesthetics, branding, and imagery. I'm definitely a CX and UX specialist, but I'm a pretty terrible artist. I don't qualify for a UI UX job where I'm expected to also do branding or visual design work. UX and UI are two separate specialties that have been glued together for probably no other reason than to try to save money and make one person do the job of two people. But I'm old enough to remember when I could get specialized UX design jobs that didn't require me to do any art, branding, or visual design. That was someone else's job. So think of your UX specialist as the building architect. Your UI specialist is the interior designer. You need both. They both do important but very different jobs. And being talented in UX doesn't mean you're a great artist. Being a great artist doesn't mean you're great at UX. Many people are sure they are great at both, but it's rarer than people want to admit. Looking back at UCD, let's talk a little bit more about some of these phases and why they're important. Research is definitely the most important phase. Now, a lot of people think about UX design, so they're thinking Debbie's going to come tell us why design is important. Honestly, design is important. Research is way more important. It's not user-centered without users. If you ask your designers to make stuff and users really weren't involved other than what we imagine about them, this is web design. This is not UX design. And we primarily in the research world want to observe people because you can learn a lot more about who they are, their tasks, their needs, and their goals by watching them. Interviews are excellent when we ask the right questions the right ways. Interviews are disastrous when we ask the wrong questions, the wrong people, or the wrong ways. But what people say and do aren't the same, so observing them is always better. Statistics and quantitative data are nice, but they're not a substitute for observing and interviewing people, deeply understanding them, and getting qualitative data. CX and UX want to know the who, what, where, when, how, and especially the why. We are little detectives. Put on your detective hat. I don't have my detective hat with me today, but I do have my critical thinking hat. But we'll talk about that later. I'll get that hat ready. And every step of research is important. Here's what research really looks like. We do planning. We write interview and task guides. We recruit participants to make sure they are representative of our target population. We execute the research, sometimes moderated, where someone's there talking to people, or unmoderated, where we're not there and they're using tools. We interpret it, we analyze it, we synthesize it, we evaluate it, and then we arrive on actionable insights and strategic suggestions. You can see how different this is from, we asked a few users what they want and we're going to build that. And usability testing, which comes back later in the process, is the QA of CX and UX. We shouldn't skimp on QA for our code. So why do we rush out untested product concepts and say, we'll figure it out later? That is slow and wasteful. Usability testing early in the process helps us invalidate and improve concepts. Research and testing help us know what is quality and valuable to users. As an example, my company a few years ago did a live remote observational study to learn how online sellers list items for sale on a very well-known selling platform. We asked participants to share their screen, but also tell us before they did that about all of their steps. We heard about how they make the item and they photograph it. Some people photograph it outside, some people photograph it inside, some people have lighting, some people don't. We learned everything. We had an incredible amount of information for our client. But when it came to some of the digital stuff, just from watching people trying to use this form, we found that certain fields on the page were meaningless. People didn't know what the fields meant, so they weren't sure if they had to fill them out or how to fill them out correctly. We learned that they put band-aids and workarounds on the process of listing the item. They had outside tools, cheat sheets, browser plugins, and more to try to improve their task efficiencies. Why does the form ask if your downloadable PDF art file comes physically in a frame? Hold on, I need this one. What? And they found error messages that didn't make any sense to them. They couldn't understand what was going wrong or how to fix it. You're unlikely to understand all of these details from behaviors and workarounds and tasks from a survey. A/B testing isn't going to tell us this. NPS is not going to tell us this. And people tend to be less honest in focus groups where others in the room are surely judging them. Or put a personality like mine in your focus group, and your focus group is toast. But by watching how individuals from our target audiences do things now, we can deeply understand their tasks. Every single thing we learn is an opportunity to create a better product. That might be an incremental improvement, or it could be a complete reinvention that jumps way past the competition. These are risk mitigating opportunities. We want to understand customers' needs and tasks. We want to create the right products that meet or exceed those needs while being intuitive and easy. P's A/B testing and experiments are often focused on optimizing. Sure, we can keep making small changes, but what if our focus on small improvements means we're not seeing the opportunities to rethink or redesign something? How did you do the question marks animation effect? I use vMix. Thank you. Sorry, so let me roll back a little bit. We can keep making small changes and iterations and optimizations, but then we're probably not seeing the opportunity to rethink or redesign something. Small optimizations are sometimes a band-aid and can be risky and wasteful. Fans of A/B testing often downplay the importance of early research and creating solutions based on customer intelligence. These fans have a hypothesis and they just want to run with their hypothesis because that seems faster than allowing a user-centered design process to answer questions and mitigate risk. But if you love hypotheses and the scientific method, then you must remember that the hypothesis is step 3 of the scientific method. Step 1 is observe and research. Step 2 is frame the problem or come up with a question. Step 3 is create the hypothesis that might answer the question or solve the problem. Step 4 is about designing and conducting the experiment that would prove or disprove your hypothesis. And step 5 analyzes data and draws conclusions. We would decide if our solution needs small changes or a complete rethink. Then we would have to cycle back to step 3 to change the solution so that it better solves the problem from step 2. You cycle around until you have the best execution of the best solution concept in the time we're allowed. This should sound like user-centered design because it is. But a public experiment or an A/B test shouldn't be the first time we test things with our target audience. This shows some of the importance of user-centered design and how we in UX identify and mitigate risk. It's much riskier to ship something to some or all of the public than to test it and improve it behind the scenes before the public struggles with it and before engineering has written a line of code. Your public experiment or A/B test can be a cycle from your scientific method, but it's a later cycle. We should only be experimenting with concepts that did well during user-centered design. Why push something live that might be completely wrong when we can know earlier that it's wrong? User-centered design saves time and money while increasing efficiency. Ron Kohavi appeared on Lenny's podcast and said that A/B test failure rates were 92% for Airbnb, 66% for Microsoft, and 50% for Amazon. The bottom of the image on the screen says, it's not about having better product managers or working at a better company. It's the nature of product development. This sounds like, please don't blame us. It's the process, but the process is good, so don't try to change it. Ron also posted to LinkedIn just last month about his time as VP at Airbnb. He said, quote, "We tried hard to evaluate in A/B tests only things we believed had a relatively high probability of being successful. Despite this attempt to only test what the team was highly confident about, only 8% of tests were successful. This should sound alarms. Consider the process that leads to an A/B test. We know that A, the product we released, isn't that great. It's badly broken, it's half-baked, or we know it has serious room for improvement. We know it's not 5 stars out of 5 quality for our customers. When an A/B test fails, it's a clear sign that we're not working from good evidence or data. We understand our customers so little that the B we hypothesized would be an improvement was a measurable, palpable downgrade. We burned time and money by releasing or experimenting with something that performed worse than what we already had. We're cooking up what I call the guessing lasagna. We have opinions, guesses, and assumptions about customers. We layer on guesses about why they do or don't take certain actions. We assume guessing will be faster than good research that would answer our team's questions. Our next layer of guesses is the solutions we hope will make customers happier, achieve business goals, or on a good day, both. The more guesses we layer on, the more likely it is that one or more of these are incorrect, leading to sometimes foreseeable and avoidable failures. The guessing lasagna is rarely delicious or nutritious, and it costs company thousands, if not millions, per plate. We should consider changing the process if we are experiencing a lot of failure. We're agile. We want to continuously review our work and outcomes and find ways to improve. A 0% failure rate is impossible. But every company and team should want to minimize failures, risks, and consequences. Failing 92% of the time, or even 50% of the time, when you are highly confident that you're getting this right, is a clear sign that we're bad at this. We don't understand our users well enough to know what will succeed. And yet, we don't want to take the time to do good CX or UX research or design because we think that'll be too slow. What is slower than nearly constant product failures? Got another slide or two, and then I'll answer your questions. So changing from being a feature factory to being customer-centric and user-obsessed will require a change to our processes. Many teams start with requirements, user stories, or feature ideas. These ideas are often a guess, assumption, or hope, sometimes based on a desired user outcome, but often based on a desired business outcome. Ideas around functionality become features that we plan and roadmap. We feed these into the product world, and we ask UX designers to create wireframes and prototypes for those ideas. Our solution is based on pre-decided features. This approach is called being feature-oriented. You decide the features first, and everything is planned around that. But what if these aren't a good match to users' tasks, needs, or realities? We may have created a lot of delay, waste, and risk, thinking that we're fast. There are delay, waste, and risk when we are hoping to find out later if our guesses are good or not. It might be weeks or months until we get survey results or analytics, and I hope we've picked the right things to measure. Feature-oriented processes are easy to start because they normally start with build. They assume you can't learn what customers need or prefer until you've released something live to some or all of the public. Feature-oriented processes assume it's not worth the time to try to learn more before just trying your first idea. Or they assume we will guess really well exactly what people need. Instead of being a feature factory, consider another approach called task-oriented design. It's been around for decades, and it requires what we research and learn about real users' tasks to be the focal point, their workflows, their unmet needs. Observational research helps us see where tasks are bad or inefficient for people, the same people who might tell you in a survey, focus group, or interview that they like these screens and everything's fine. The results of observational research help us define the overarching product or UX strategy. Once we have this strategy and a mountain of customer intelligence the research gave us, UX, product, and engineering can collaborate on prioritizing pain points and opportunities. Notice I said pain points and opportunities. We're not prioritizing features. Features don't exist yet. We have pain points and opportunities, and we're going to decide which of these we want to address first. Then we can plan and roadmap our work. But ultimately, in a task-oriented world, the features derive from the solution. The solution that we create to best match users' needs and the opportunities we found, that solution can then be broken up into features, stories, JIRA tickets, backlog items, however your engineering teams want to do it. MVPs are rarely customer-centric. When someone mentions the MVP, we usually see this cartoon. It shows that you wouldn't build a car by starting with one wheel, then two wheels, then the car's body, and finally a full car. The cartoon shows that an MVP is more like building a skateboard first, then a kick scooter, then a bicycle, then a motorcycle, and then finally the car you wanted to build in the first place. But in reality, neither of these are the MVP. If we're starting with sad user faces, we're getting this wrong. In both examples, the early products you're releasing to customers or as an experiment aren't close to what you're trying to build. If users need a car, neither a single wheel nor a skateboard will be a match to their needs. Neither a single wheel nor a skateboard will tell you if the planned car is the right solution to users' pain points and needs. We're not going to know if we're going in the right direction because we're not building the thing. The MVP was mostly originally intended for startups who didn't have UX workers, usually didn't have product workers, and probably had no research on their target audiences. These startups just wanted to impress investors by showing they could release something fast. But we're not there anymore. Very few of us work at startups. And even if we do, it's amazing how many startups go out of business. What is it now? 90%, 95%? So many of them claim to use the lean startup method. We have high failure rates and nobody wants to question the lean startup method. It's just wacky. I don't get it. But ultimately, remember, your users don't want minimally viable anything. Make sure customers have every release that they see must be 5 stars out of 5. If it's not creating high customer satisfaction, let's not release something we know is likely to create angry or sad faces. Don't just be led by product. Be led by the value and quality we can deliver to target audiences. And another problem here is that since most of us work at feature factories, your CX or UX team is told to just build a skateboard, often without knowing if the car will exist or that we're planning a car or what users needed that might end up looking like a car. This means we design for the now and the box we're put in. We're not able to think ahead or future-proof the project by designing for the ultimate goal or solution. Consider reframing the MVP. If you want to release a small slice of something first, make sure that it delivers maximum user value. Instead of a skateboard, it's a small car. The MVP is supposed to be a tiny slice of our solution to check that we're going in the right direction. But user-centered design handles that for us by creating realistic prototypes and testing them on current and potential customers. We don't have to go through engineering cycles to know if we're going in the right or wrong direction. We can gather better evidence before we spend time on coding and QA testing. So just to quickly look at Sebastian's question, why do organizations choose to release too early? The short answer here would be because most companies think being fast is better than being good. And we have a lot of excuses. I think I have a slide later on the common excuses we use to release early rather than good. You fail fast. And if you wait too long, you should be embarrassed by your product. Who wants to be embarrassed by your product? We have lots of excuses. But I think we're not looking at quality. And let's face it, at probably all of our companies, there's no accountability. We can release endless garbage. We can get negative customer reviews. We can have customers leave us. No one's in trouble. Nobody. So why should we be better? No one's in trouble. So now I want to answer some common questions that Ugur sent me. And I hope these are questions that you've been thinking of and that I can answer these for you. But if not, please do add your questions to the chat and I will certainly address them. Just to give people a sense of where we are, I'm about halfway through my slides. So we probably have another 20, 25 or so minutes. And then, of course, I'll take your questions until the guys throw me out. So a common question I get is, isn't UX just like a skill that anybody can have? Is it really a role or a job? Can't we just read a book or take a course and have that UX skill on our team? And I like to describe UX and CX work as the iceberg. And it's true for all of our jobs, isn't it? Our coworkers, managers, and leaders rarely see the science and technique or the strategy that go into our work. Probably true for your work, definitely true for my work. And a lot of people don't know that the core of CX and UX work is cognitive psychology and studies of human behavior, because people see wireframes, pretty screens, sketches, whiteboards, walls of sticky notes. So they think, oh, UX makes screens. Anybody can make wireframes and decide how products look and work. Or they see a researcher talking to a user and they think, talking to people is easy. Anybody can do that. But I've got a phases of proficiency model, and here's the upside down iceberg version, where people just really see the tip of the iceberg of what we do without understanding what's going on below the surface. The iceberg model explains why I tend to hear UX has easy work anybody can do, or why a fun group workshop can replace a UX specialist's work. No, it can't. When I hear this is so easy, anybody can do it, we are in building block land, ignoring the quality of the work being done and ignoring the body of the iceberg. Cognitive psychology, interaction design, information architecture, accessibility, and other concepts, best practices, and skills that we need to create excellent designs. We've studied and practiced a lot to make our tasks look easy when they're not. So if you're saying or behaving as if everybody's a researcher, everybody can be a designer, anyone can be a marketer, everyone's a strategist, you're probably getting it wrong. People have strengths and specialties. Play to those and don't downplay or disrespect specialties and strengths by acting like everybody's interchangeable. I learned some basic programming in 1979. I learned HTML in 1995. I'm passionate about engineering, so I can code to production, right? Or am I just at the building blocks phase of proficiency? If you are squirming in your seat at the idea of your engineers having to deal with or check with my code, then you know what CX and UX are thinking every time we hear anybody can do your work, or that engineers and product managers will make some wireframes and that will be good enough for customers. I often hear that UX skills are walls of sticky notes, making a customer journey map, creating personas, or a wireframe or a prototype. But hear me out. These aren't skills. They're just the documents, or what we call the artifacts of our work. And it takes great skills to do these well. Anybody, even someone without skill, could do research or design. But this work will probably be done without science, technique, or strategy. It'll probably be done poorly, which can set us up for small and large failures. Anybody can use Figma, but that doesn't mean you created a design that is desirable, credible, findable, useful, usable, accessible, or valuable. UX work is not just something we check off a to-do list. Some Scrum Masters and Agile coaches like to tell me UX work just has to get done, and it doesn't matter who does it or how well they do it. But would we say that about any other task or role? Would we say coding just has to get done, and it doesn't matter who does it or how well they do it? If we care about quality, we care about the quality of the work that we're doing. We want the work to be done well. We want it to be done strategically, thoroughly, and with good rigor. So in reality, CX and UX skills include having a low ego and being humble, because we have to be able to ignore anything we like or we prefer in favor of what would work best for the target audience. You are not the user. We need the ability to predict and see multiple possible outcomes. We need problem finding and critical thinking, problem solving, having to be a mini detective and a mini lawyer who advocates for user needs and for the ethics of our decisions, powers of observation, deductive reasoning and logic. And we've also developed skills and knowledge in areas like cognitive psychology, human behavior, information architecture, and other disciplines. When you don't understand UX work, it's easy to confuse our documents with the skills that it took to create those documents well or at an expert level. We wouldn't say that owning a scissors and seeing a pile of hair on the floor are the skills of someone who cuts hair. They are the evidence that this task has been done. But the skills of the hairstylist and the quality of their work will be obvious when we see how your hair looks. So, who does CX or UX work? Now, your company, if you have any CX or UX people working there, chances are your candidates had to go through multiple interviews, reviews of their past work, and possibly even an exercise to scrutinize how they do their work. Now, if this is how we check if someone is qualified to do CX or UX work, then we must check internal teammates and hold them to these same standards for knowledge, skill, or proficiency. We can't have standards for some roles or domains and not for others. Anybody in our company who would like to do CX work should be held to these standards. Any standard we would hold a job candidate to is a standard I want to hold a product owner, business analyst, PM, engineer, marketer, or anybody else who thinks they want to do CX or UX work. Would this person qualify for a CX or UX job at our company? We shouldn't be giving people CX or UX tasks if they wouldn't qualify for a CX or UX job. And anybody who is doing CX or UX tasks should be in a CX or UX department with a CX or UX manager who has a long history of work doing the work. And everyone should be held to our standards and have our work reviews. Let's make sure we're staffing up our CX and UX departments with people who plan to have a career in these spaces. If we're spending time, money, or effort on training people to do CX or UX work, stop doing that. Let those people do their regular jobs. Open up apprentice and junior CX and UX jobs and give them the training. At least they'll already have some foundational knowledge and the right personality for our work. What can we do if we don't have any CX or UX practitioners at our company or on our particular team? Well, in short, I don't have good news for you. Your CX and UX professionals are often key strategists, researchers, and designers who are trying to create great customer outcomes while minimizing business risk. If you don't have such a person on your team, I'd probably say you should expect those high failure rates we keep hearing about. If we're not working from good early research that identifies the real problems that need solutions, there's a good chance that the feature we invented could be a poor solution or a decent solution that nobody wants. People who don't understand UX work very well like to tell me they can just have a product owner or developer read a UX book or watch some videos and they'll be able to do good UX work. You can watch all 800 hours of my UX videos and then maybe you'd know a few things, but still there could be a chance that you might do it poorly. If we didn't have developers and we asked some other role to read a book about coding or maybe watch some videos, how well do you think that person would code? I also hear that developers or product managers can do the easy UX work. But when I've asked people, what is the easy UX work? They say creating screens, customer journey maps, talking to customers. But that's like saying development is just typing letters and words. And as long as I can type letters and words, I should be a good developer. No. So probably the best thing you can do when you don't have CX or UX people on your teams is look for the reasons to make the case to get them on your team. Hiring at least one specialized researcher and one specialized architect or designer as a start. Let somebody at your company or team know how much time you would save if you had experts taking care of these tasks. Let somebody know how many sprints you'd be saving by avoiding risk, waste, and the costs of poor quality we discussed earlier. Let somebody know how much it has cost our company every time we ran with guesses and crappy experiments that ended up wastes of time, money, and hurting customers' trust. If 6 to 10 engineers working on something for weeks or months is agile or totally normal and nothing special, then 5 CX or UX practitioners working on something for weeks or months is also agile and totally normal, and probably more agile than what you're doing today. Yes, 5 UX practitioners completely allocated to a project, product, or agile team might seem like a lot of people. But we wouldn't say that 5 engineers on a team is too many. If we start recognizing the depth and specialty in CX and UX work, and especially the number of specialties across human-centered design, we can start to understand why having a bunch of specialists completely allocated to our project would be awesome. At the company, at my Delta CX company, we put 3 researchers on a project together. One is a senior or lead, and the others are lower level and cost less. We put 2 designers on a project. This means that if someone is sick or goes on vacation, you always have a designer or researcher working on your project. If someone quits, there is always someone with full project knowledge who can onboard the replacement. Hire qualified CX and UX researchers and architects until there are no bottlenecks. It only happens when leaders fight for budget and headcount. This is just a slide that I'll load up really quickly, but it gives kind of a math example of if you think about how much people on your team are paid and how much we could pay UX researchers, even 3 of them, as my previous example showed, we would end up more than making that money back, even if they spent 6 weeks on a research project, which some people would have their heads explode thinking that's too slow. Yet when engineers need 6 weeks, that's fine. But we would be able to more than make that money back if we saved even 1 sprint of work anywhere in the long term of our project, anywhere before engineering starts coding, anywhere while they're coding and testing. If we saved crappy A/B tests from going out, if we saved bad guesses from going out, if we saved a we'll fix it later, all we would have to do is save our team about 9 work days of work for a 6-week research project to be worth it when your researchers are paid pretty well. So do the math. Stop saying, oh, we can't afford this. Oh, blah, blah. It definitely pays for itself, and we can do the math to prove it, especially money spent on customers who downgraded and left, or the money we lost. Money spent on goofy ass workshops. I'm not a fan of design thinking, design sprints, and lean UX. These are all fake UX, but that's a lot of money you spent taking people away from their work to come and play guessing lasagna. You can definitely make this back with good research. Ugur also asked me to talk about how do we know if we've hired a good UX practitioner. Now, of course, if you don't have great, extremely senior UX practitioners, people with 7, 10, or more years of experience, you might not be able to recognize who's good at UX and who isn't. I'm not good at recognizing who's a good developer and who isn't. It's just not my strength. But my company does help people and companies hire. So if you think that's something we can do for you, let me know. But I like to talk about first, if you are hiring for CX and UX, one of the first things you'll want to think about are what I like to call short order cooks versus interface scientists. And these have to do with people's personalities. And as I describe this, you might recognize yourself in one of these two. A short order cook does their best work when you tell them exactly what you want. You have the solution or the design idea, and you just need a pair of hands to put it together. Hey, just wireframe what our competitor's doing because we're going to rip them off. You want bacon and eggs? Here's delicious, perfectly cooked bacon and eggs. But interface scientists do their best work when you bring them problems, questions, pain points, customer feedback, and data. Don't bring them prescribed solutions. They're not your pair of hands just wireframing what someone else wants to see. Don't even ask for bacon and eggs. Tell us about how customers are having trouble selecting a breakfast. We'll cycle through research, concepts, testing, and iteration to find the best executions of the best ideas. Bye, Reimar. Yes, so that means if your company wants someone to just take orders, make things pretty, and shut up, You probably don't want a CX or UX professional. You probably don't want a change agent or interface scientist personality if you really just want someone who's going to take orders from engineers or product managers. And if your company really wants change, insights, and improvements and customer centricity, don't hire the order taker. The order taker is happier being told exactly what to do. And there are both types out there. I bet you're thinking right now which one you tend to be. Your company needs to get better at deciding which you want and then assessing candidates correctly so that you're matching the right jobs to the right people. If you want someone to just make a pretty Figma file of the product manager's idea, don't hire me. Don't hire someone who wants to find and solve problems and think critically. Make sure you're hiring someone who likes doing what other people ask them to do and finds that work rewarding. I believe that all CX and UX jobs should be interface scientist jobs. UX shouldn't be grunt workers making what someone asked for. That makes us web designers and not UX designers. If your company needs help building or hiring teams, let me know. Let's also talk about empowerment. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Empowerment, autonomy, Agile Manifesto, principle number 5. Build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. Your question might be, how do we know we hired a good UX practitioner? Or how do we know our UX practitioner is doing good work? But we can't answer those without also asking, did you empower your UX practitioner to do good work? You opened the job. You hired the person. Are you letting them do good work? Are you giving them the least amount of time to get something done? Is done more important than done well? If you hire a problem finder and solver, but you only want them to take orders, it'll look like they're not doing their job well when they offer critical thinking, ask important questions, or want to talk about the risks of designing the wrong thing. Practitioners are sometimes accused of doing their job poorly because someone thinks they're too slow. But think about that common situation. Nobody asked UX to estimate their time. You end up surprising your UX people. Here's the project, here's a deadline, but they want to do good work and they want more time. Now people think they're slow and bad to work with. But we can improve this situation by empowering our UX practitioners. Before someone estimates and allocates time and budgets, work with CX and UX very early to find out how much time and what resources they'll need to do the project well. If you want the work done faster, let's talk about the risk of being faster or knowingly giving people less time than they need to do good work. Let's not be surprised if that work turns out to be a failure. And if it's a failure, let's use that to demand next time that UX gets more time and more resources. So let's imagine that your company has a very important project. You've decided that you will allocate just one developer. That's it. One developer will do all the front-end work, back-end work, QA testing, DevOps work, APIs, anything related to engineering. Sounds great, right? And now imagine you're responsible for all of these things, not just for one project, but 3 important projects. Can you deliver good work to any of the projects you're on? You're going to be coding and someone says, where's the QA? You're going to try to do QA and someone says, where's the API calls? How could you do a great job? And would you recommend that your friends work here? Have you been given the environment and the support you need? This is typically the scenario for a UX worker at many companies around the world. We're set up for failure. Developers, engineering leads, and product managers love to tell me that their UX person is too slow. When I suggest that they build UX up like you would build up an agile team, that doesn't make sense to them. They think UX is a lot of easy work that should be finished quickly, even by one person expected to do every possible UX task for more than one team. This is a one-way ticket to Burnout City, and it's unfair to expect this from anyone. Developers, engineering leads, and product managers love to tell me their UX person says no too often, doesn't want to do what they're being asked for, or isn't making stakeholders happy. But again, as you can tell from what I'm saying, UX has a lot of ingredients for success. There's a lot of things that we need to do our jobs well, but we often get the opposite of what we need. We get opinions and guesses and disempowerment and just make it pretty and give the stakeholder what they want, and we need to go fast and you're too slow. So before you can determine if a UX practitioner is doing a good job or not, do some investigating. Are they getting what they need to do a good job? They're not doing a good job, it's probably not their fault. This is a slide about how we know the value of good user experiences. We know we want to attract customers, make them happy, and keep them and make them loyal. This is the work of CX and UX. Sure, we like to give credit to product managers and engineers. They're part of the team too, but this is part of the value of UX. So a couple of closing slides. Remember, customers want 5 stars out of 5 quality. They don't care how many developers you have. They don't care how agile you were. They don't care how fast you release it. Think about the websites and systems and companies that you really love. It's stuff solved your problems. It just worked. It was so great. But it's hard to think of that. It's much easier to think of the systems you don't like, the ones you left, the frustrating ones, the ones you complained about. And you often think, when you see something crappy, you don't think, I wonder how many sprints they spent on that. I wonder how fast they were. When you see something that's crappy, you think, who built this junk? And that's a good question, because maybe it was a guessing lasagna. Maybe we thought it was good enough, but customers know we suck. So all day long, we can think of companies and products that suck. And then we show up to our jobs, settle for mediocrity, and claim it'll be good enough. And as I was saying before, we make lots of excuses as to why we just need to keep going faster. Just ship it. We'll fix it later, without thinking of, do we ever fix it later? And what does that cost us? Users will figure it out, or they'll leave you. Fail fast. There's nothing cool about failing fast. If you're not embarrassed, you ship too late. Who wants to be embarrassed? Many of us work at big companies trying to grow, or small companies trying to grow. Lean is the least we can do. That is not the definition of lean. Look up traditional lean, not lean startup, fake lean. Move fast and break things, said by the most controversial company on the planet. And why do we want to break things? And if we break things, can we please do it behind the scenes during user-centered design and not making users struggle with it? We have to stop saying it's good enough. We have to stop all of these wasteful things that aren't agile or lean. And people are not happy with minimally viable stuff. So remember, fast sounds cool, but it's much better if we're great. Efficiency is important, but we need to proactively recognize and mitigate risk. Better planning. Throw away crappy surveys. Stop guessing so much. There's nothing in agility or lean that I found that says don't spend extra time up front to do a better job the first time. Agile welcomes customer feedback-driven products and decisions, and changing as we need to and as we get in new information. Lean welcomes recognizing problems early, understanding root causes, and eliminating waste and defects. So I always like to close with a quote from Joe Rohde, former retired senior vice president from Disney Imagineering, who said, "One should not be asking the question, how little can we get away with, but rather, how much can we afford to do to be really impressive?" That's the quote to hang on the wall. And it's how we start reinventing the customer experience. So thank you. Check out my Customers Know You Suck book and my CustomerCentricity.com website. And now I'm happy to stay a little past 8, but I do have a meeting I have to run to. And I told them I'll be a little late. But thank you. Thank you for all the emojis. Thank you. How do you know how much time is enough for new UX work while ensuring the team makes progress? UX work is progress. So really you have to work with your UX people and your UX leaders. They're not always good at estimating time because they're not used to doing it. We've spent decades with somebody going, hey, you've got a day, good luck, you know. So we're not always great at estimating time. We're not used to it, but work with the seniors and leaders who might be better at it, or ask me for help. But basically, you are making progress. If UX needs, let's imagine UX needs weeks or a couple of sprints to do something, there's got to be something engineering can do. I love when engineering leads tell me, oh, engineering's going to have nothing to do if UX needs days or whatever. And I go, really? There's nothing in the backlog? We have no performance issues? We have nothing that engineers can work on at all? That's amazing. We must be amazing. There was nothing in the backlog that we said we'd fix later? We're unbelievable. So there's always something that engineering can be working on. But if we were to work with UX earlier in planning, then we would be able to get ahead of this. Instead of engineering being surprised later that UX is going to need time, this should be planned from the start. This is what I do all the time. I don't know why people don't do this. And then they poop on UX people and go, oh, you're slowing us down. But if you had planned this from the start and everybody knew I needed this time and engineering could plan for that, I wouldn't be slowing you down. It would be part of the plan. Q&A. Let's see what's here. Well, nothing got upvoted, so I'll just work from the top. Aisha says, how do you recommend bridging? Oh, it says oldest first. No, didn't anything get upvoted? Popular. Let's try that. Okay, nothing got upvoted. We'll start with Naisha. How do you recommend bridging the gap between customer support and product strategists and designers? So typically that's just going to mean having more conversations. We want to make sure that sometimes companies I've worked, sometimes customer support gives a monthly report to product strategists and UX people. Here's some common themes. Here's some new complaints we're hearing. You release this new product or this fix, and here's some things that we're hearing related to that. So it could be, we used to get an Excel spreadsheet from customer support at one job I had. Really, it's up to your team how you want to do this. So I'm not going to tell you there's only one way to do it, but I think that having a cadence of making sure that information is moving in both directions is going to be really important for bridging customer support, and making sure that you're hearing from them, especially if you're releasing an experiment or something else, and getting that feedback from them too. Katarina says, what would you say to the big boss that tells you to do UX but doesn't dedicate any budget for it? I think that depends on your personality, whether or not you're me. And if you have if you have a manager who, if you don't have a manager that supports you and your boss doesn't think UX should have any budget, then you are looking for a new job. You're probably wondering why they even hired you. So I think you would have to be able to talk to people about, look, you hired me to do this job. My job requires time, budget, resources. These are the things it requires. There isn't much that we can do without time, budget, resources, access to people, sometimes certain tools. So, if the boss wants UX and doesn't budget for it, then they don't want UX. Any discipline or domain that we want to exist at our company and certainly enhance has to have a budget. So UX should have a budget, and it should control its own budget. UX should have autonomy. Let's jump up to Paul's question. What learning from the implementation phase could we lack? Yeah.
I think there was now a higher rating, so it's still Paul's question.
Oh, I don't know. This said sort by popular, and it's not. It's also not letting me clear them. Can you please clear them as I answer them? Because now I'm getting everything. All right, I'll go to the other Paul question. Let me see. Okay, the other Paul question. Why is Lean UX a fake? So Lean UX, I've got hours of videos on this on the Delta CX channel. So if I had to give you the short version of it, Lean UX is a fake because it's neither Lean nor UX. Lean UX was mostly ripped off of the Lean business model approach. It was partially ripped off from Lean business model and Lean startup. And basically, it was just a money grab in the early 2010s to just put the word Lean UX, just to put the word UX on a book that said Lean, because O'Reilly then came out with a series of books that said Lean lean something, lean marketing, lean whatever the fuck. I mean, it was just so much bullshit, if I can say that to you candidly. So lean UX is neither lean nor UX. And a lot of lean UX, it doesn't look like human-centered design at all. It basically says run with guesses. If you look at the lean UX canvas, it's a ripoff of the business model canvas. So it starts with the business outcome. It starts with guessing at solutions. So a lot of lean UX just isn't UX, because in order for something to be UX, it has to be user-centered. And lean UX is business-centered. This talk will be a mega hit. Well, thank you. That would be the extremely short version. But basically, when the Lean UX book came out in 2012, most of UX ignored it. When the second edition came out in 2016, and it was kind of an anti-way of doing UX, we all thought it was ridiculous. We laughed at it. I had to get my teeth fixed. I ground them so much from reading it. And all of us ignored it. We thought, this is so ridiculously fake. This is a non-viable model. No one's going to do this. But then Safe Agile picked it up, because Safe was looking for something that would disempower UX, and they found lean UX, because Safe doesn't want to empower UX. It's pretty clear. So Safe wanted to disempower UX. They found lean UX and they brought it in. And then most of the people reading lean UX aren't even UX people. So that would be the short version, but I think I have 3 hours about this on my YouTube channel. So if you're curious, go to YouTube, write Delta CX Lean UX, and you got hours of what I like to call toilet time. You can just sit on that toilet and watch me rant about lean UX. Adolfo says, when you have a language barrier, how do you get around?
Just quickly, maybe. So I would say other question will be the last one, because I think then we are.
I'm going to stay for another, let's say I'll stay till 8:05, and I'm going to go through as many questions as I can until 8:05.
Yeah, okay.
No,
so
you're throwing me out.
You are also welcome. So go for the next question.
Adolfo, language barrier. How do you go about when interviewing clients? We hire researchers who speak the language. You are supposed to interview people in the language in which they use your system or tool. So if you are meeting Portuguese people who use your tool in Portuguese, you interview them in Portuguese. If you are meeting Portuguese people who use your tool in English, you can interview them in English. But ultimately, you are supposed to interview people in either the language they're most comfortable in or the language in which they use your system. That is my lightning answer there. Let's try to find another short one that I can get through quickly. What's a short one?
If it's okay for you, Debbie, let's do it like that. So maybe the questions, they can ask you directly per mail or somehow?
Absolutely. Everybody's always welcome to send me questions through LinkedIn, send me questions through my online community, send me an email. I'll put it in the chat. I'm deb@deltacx.com. Depending upon your questions, I might even send you back a video answer, because I am sick of typing so much. So I just want to quickly thank everybody for listening, for your fantastic questions. And I really hope to help you and your teams understand UX more, work it into your processes, stop making excuses for why you're not delivering customers better things. Let's really focus on quality and value, and not what is fastest or fake lean. We've got enough years of trying this crap that we now know that it doesn't work, and it's fake, and our customers aren't happy.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much, David. It was a great session. I think so I read the chat, so there were so many feedback and new learnings from you. So again, thank you very much. And at the end, maybe just let me do a short advertisement for our next sessions. So our next 2 sessions will be already in next week. So AI for product owners, and the next one, I know you don't like the topic, Debbie.
Not at all.
About impact mapping from Vishra. Both topics will be in German, but as I mentioned, we do it in Google Meet, so you can have a live translation. I don't know how it works, but I would be very curious to try it. So if some people of you, just English-speaking people joining as well, would be great. And of course, you're always welcome to follow us and give us feedback, and also give some recommendations. Who do you like to hear? What topics are you interested in, so we can reach out to people or have a look into topics who is very interesting in that topic, and invite them to our Agile Tuesday. So again, thank you very much. Thanks everybody who's joined. And yeah, I think you put your email address or your email address in
people
the
are
chat.
welcome to, and again, just troll YouTube for lots of stuff. Or if you just want a question answered, please do email me. I'm happy to send back something I've typed or video recorded just for you. And I will get the slides to Ugur so that he can send them out to everybody. But I do have a meeting at my regular job now, which I'm late for. So I promise I will get you those slides before I go to sleep.
Yes, and for everybody, the video and the slides, I will publish them on YouTube. So I will put also a link on it, and follow us on LinkedIn so you get the news and you get the feeds if we publish it. So thanks everybody. So thank you too, and thanks everybody who joined. I wish you.
Thanks everybody. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.